We've only got a couple more in the Devo series, The Sweetness of God, and this one is called Sweet Fruit. Summer fruit. Is there anything really better than summer fruit? What's your favorite? I'm thinking here in Texas it's probably the summer peach. And peach cobbler with ice cream. Are you salivating now? Song of Songs in the Bible has this description of the lover of our souls, and it says, like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my beloved among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. Let him lead me to the banquet hall, and let his banner over me be love. Have you ever sat underneath a fruit tree that has dropped so much fruit that it's lying on the ground around you? Where my sister lives in Northern California, there are so many fruit trees in people's yards, and we always marvel when we visit how many pieces of fruit are just lying around on the ground that we would eat up in a minute if we had those here in Texas. But that's the picture here in this verse of sitting under the shade of the one who loves us the most, and how a delight it is to sit in his shade and taste his sweet fruit. One doesn't even have to reach up and pick the fruit. It just drops to those who are sitting under the shade of its branches, and that's an awesome picture. When we take refuge from the heat of the day and choose his presence as our dwelling place, his covering over us to shade us from the scorch of the day, fruit drops, sweet fruit. Not dry, brittle leaves and seed pods that are hard and empty. But what is the fruit that he drops from the fruit tree under which we sit? Well, there are all the fruits of the Spirit, like love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, meekness, temperance, and faith. I learned all of those in a song as a kid, and I've never forgotten them. The first few in that list sound awesome, like love, joy, and peace. But the rest of that list comes from living on this earth and surrendering to his plans and purposes as he works in us the sweetness of his fruit. Long-suffering indicates that there will be suffering, but we will endure. Gentleness is required with unruly and difficult kids and people. And goodness can never be acquired on our own. We need him. And the list goes on. But these are some of the fruit evident in our lives when we come aside and sit under his shade. Pardon for sin is sweet. The hope of eternal life is sweet. Assurance of his love is the sweetest. Have you ever been walking on a trail, say around a body of water, and it's really hot outside because there's no cloud cover? I have. The sun starts to beat on my forehead, and I need a place out of the sun or I feel like I'm going to faint. I start looking for a shade tree because shade is everything in the heat of the day. And if there was a fruit tree, well, that shade tree would feel like paradise. However, the next verse we read says there's even more. There's an entire table, a banquet table, where he leads us, and the banner over it is his love. Is that sweet or what? A banquet table, that language indicates a feast, and I imagine that there's a fruit tray piled high with all sorts of fruit. We recently had a big spread for our family, and it included a fruit tray. There's nothing more beautiful on a table than the colors of strawberries, blackberries, watermelon, oranges, all laid together and ready for eating. It's seriously intoxicating to behold and taste. And that's the picture here when it says that his fruit is sweet. He knows just when to drop it, so to speak, when it's ripe and juiciest and the sweetest, but we might miss its fall if we don't come aside from this heat to sit in its shade. Fruit requires lots of labor from the farmer, digging, planting, fertilizing, and pruning. And then the fruit has to be picked, peeled, seeded, and served. Life may not feel sweet at times, but it could be that the farmer is in one of those stages of preparing the fruit, the sweetness from his hand. Our job is to let him do his work and then eat from his hand aside from the heat overhead. And then guess what? If we sit still and eat of his fruit, we'll hear him say, as he does later in that chapter, that our voice is altogether sweet to him as well. There's a prayer we often pray, and that is, let our voice be a sweet, sweet sound to his ears. And it is. We are. Our faces are ever before him, held in his hands while we eat of the sweet fruit under the shade and away from the heat, with more fruit than we can eat dropping around us. Imagine it, experience it, taste it, his sweet fruit.